what sort of a demented, delusional individual looks at cop killers and rapists and grown men who have murdered little girls and says, yeah, let's cut them all loose. Let's wave that magic wand. It is sick. And there doesn't seem to be anybody inside the Northam administration, not the governor, not the chief of staff, not the state inspector general, not the public safety secretary who cares. There doesn't seem to be anybody over at the attorney general's office who cares. Maybe Kirk Cox will do something about it. Kirk, of course, a state delegate, formerly the Speaker of the House of Delegates, currently running for the Republican nomination for governor. I'm happy to say he's here. Kirk, thank you for being with us.
Jeff, always appreciate the opportunity.
I don't even know where to start except to say, what do we do about this, man? This is just sick.
Yeah, you described it well, and what was it just the more we learn, the worse it seems to get. And you got parole board staffers cracking jokes about letting dangerous criminals out early. As you said, talk about waving a magic wand to free people early. And then the response to Bennett from the employee hall was she felt drunk with power and updated Bennett on her progress. And I guess the progress was how many we can cut loose. So this scandal gets worse and worse. And I think, Jeff, it's really interesting that, this started with Terry McAuliffe because he, of course, appointed Adrian Bennett. And I have called on him to demand the firing, and we've heard nothing from him. And, of course, the same thing for Governor Northam. He must fire that entire board and put law-abiding Virginians first. And you know this yourself, Jeff, just no thought for the victims whatsoever. That to me, is just the most sickening thing that we've learned from this.
It is an absolute nightmare, and you would like to think that those families who had a loved one murdered, the very least they would get is some shred of decency, some modicum of respect from the parole board when they are examining the convicted murderer for that. And instead, as you point out, as we've learned now, again, thanks in large part to John Burkett over at CBS 6, these folks just broomed everything, and it was full steam ahead, and, just no concern whatsoever. None for the victims' families.
Yeah, it's a total dereliction of what the parole board is supposed to be doing. You've got open advocating to release people. As you know, we've talked about this. You've got minutes that disappeared. You've got witnesses not notified on purpose, knowing how dramatic that testimony is.
Yep.
And how that testimony will move people for the exact purpose of, as you point, cutting these people loose. And so what do we get from Governor Northam? We get... this, let's have an independent, investigation. So what's the holdup? I mean, why aren't we investigating this right now? Why aren't we firing the board? But the governor's certainly taken a lot of action during this pandemic that has been, to me, way beyond what a governor's authority is. So it's interesting that we're walking this so slowly.
Yeah.
He needs, once again, to fire the parole board.
Well, and instead of firing the parole board, they have fired the investigator at the state inspector general's office who uncovered this nonsense.
Yeah, it is sort of funny that the only person getting fired here is the investigator. And I'll remind folks, an investigator who got tremendous evaluation ratings and a bonus. And then suddenly you go from being that kind of model employee to where you are suspended and, to your point now, basically fired.
Yeah.
And so the only people that they've taken any action against is the very person who's done the right thing.
Kirk Cox is joining us. Kirk is a member of the House of Delegates for the 66th District, right? I got that right?
Yes, you do. The 66th, just from Colonial Heights.
All right. We're hoping that Mike Cherry winds up succeeding you there, but we'll talk about that in a second. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kirk, because you have been paying attention to this for a long time. I thought we had abolished parole in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Did I miss something?
We did abolish parole, but as you know, what basically happens is people that sort of came in before that with George Allen are still eligible for parole. So those are a lot of the cases you're still getting. Okay. But, the other thing, Jeff, I really want to point out is we had many bills to reinstate parole and for the most violent rapists, murderers, et cetera. So this goes way beyond the parole board. It's between qualified immunity and suing police officers and, basically doing away once again with truth in sentencing, which has made us the fourth lowest violent crime rate. Right. And the Democrats brag about that. That's going away very, very, very quickly. So, and I'm going to emphasize this over and over again. There's just no concern for the victims. Jason Mayaris did something very dramatic on the floor of the House. He held up pictures of victims that were brutally murdered by a lot of these folks that have gotten out, and the Democrats objected to that. That was going too far, and that's exactly what he should have done.
That's incredible. Kirk, one of the things that we do in Virginia, which is kind of unique, we elect via the legislature, we elect judges. So this Adrian Bennett, after this appalling behavior at the Virginia Parole Board, actually elected to a judgeship out in Virginia Beach. How does that get unraveled? Can that be undone?
Well, the problem right now is you have the Democrats in control. Sure, I mean, you've got several avenues as far as, impeachment. You've got the avenue of something called the Jerk Commission, who looks at, what happens with judges. One of the problems, unfortunately, though, Jeff, is a lot of that is your conduct on the bench. And, of course, this came before she was on the bench. That is why you did not see one Republican vote for her. I mean, you saw the Republicans in bloc, basically, vote against Andrew Bennett for that reason, because we knew this was coming down. And this is very, very important. Remember, they did pack the Court of Appeals with more judges. So You're talking about a sea change in Virginia. You're going to see these types of judges get elected over and over and over again. You're starting to already see good judges getting pulled from the bench and not getting reelected. And so this is why it's all the more important to me that you have a Republican governor, a Republican legislature to stop this before it goes even further.
I thought it was outrageous as well that one of the fine jurists from Chesterfield County was essentially removed, and was removed at the urging of Joe Morrissey, of all people.
Yeah, she really was a good justice, and considered very much a law and order justice. And that was what's so ironic, that she was picked under Republicans and basically jettisoned under Democrats. Yeah. So that tells you something we hear all the time about judges, et cetera.
Yeah. Kirk Cox is joining us. Kirk, I referenced a couple of moments ago, obviously you are seeking the Republican nomination for governor. I'm happy to say that our team has finally figured out how we're going to pick somebody to carry the banner. I have filled out and filed my paperwork as a delegate, and looking forward to that. Talk a little bit about what your actions would be with the parole board if, in fact, you are elected governor.
Yeah, you would see Kirk Cox, as I've said repeatedly, fire the parole board and put people in on the parole board that would follow the law to the letter. And that, as far as, witnesses, et cetera. And that's a simple act. And let me remind folks all the time, it's not just the parole board. It's every board of visitors, of college and universities, your board of education. Mm-hmm. It is your board of elections. Please remember that. And so, governors can really affect change with this progressive agenda. And I would be very aggressive in those positions. And, Jeff, I would say I have the experience to know the right people to put on those boards to make sure that they're going to be effective and they're going to stand up to these progressive policies and turn them around quickly.
Kirk, you are leaving your seat in the House of Delegates. I mentioned briefly Mike Cherry, who is a city councilman in Colonial Heights right now, police chaplain. He's been a guest on the program a number of times. I'm very, very impressed with him. And a couple of weeks back, you wholeheartedly endorsed him, correct?
Yeah, Mike's a good guy. I mean, Mike is a city councilman, has a really good record with police and the military, just a stand-up guy. And, Jeff, I've had the privilege of representing this district for now 32 years. And, it means a lot to you. The people of the city of Colonial Heights and my area of Chesterfield are wonderful people. And, boy, as a citizen legislature, you want the right person to come in your stead. And And that seat is the citizen seat. It's not my seat or even Mike's seat, but it's pretty nice for me to be able to endorse a guy that I really think will have their values, will work hard. He's already doing that. So that's a pretty nice thing, boy, when you really feel like as you're running for governor, you've got someone who's really going to serve the citizens well in the oldest legislative body in the New World, the People's House.
No doubt. So, Kirk, I mentioned that we finally, on our side of the aisle, have got our convention situation set up. We've got the opportunity to register as delegates. For folks that, A, want to learn more about you, and B, perhaps get registered as a delegate, best way for them to do that?
Yeah, go to kirkcox.com/delegates. And Ken, Jeff, at 6:30 tomorrow night on a Thursday, the Amelia Golf and Country Club, I'll be there. And so if anyone would like to meet me personally, and I'll share why I'm the person to beat Terry McAuliffe in November, I'd love to see them there. That's at the Amelia Golf and Country Club at 6:30 p.m. And we'll have delegate forms there also for them to sign up. And I remind everybody the convention is on May the 8th. You do have to pre-file through your local committee, but it's a pretty simple process. So we'll be more than glad to share that information tomorrow night, or you can go to my website. It's right there. We make it very easy for folks. And I do appreciate you allowing us the opportunity to talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Kirk, I appreciate you being here. I'm sure we will talk again soon. That is State Delegate Kirk Cox.